Neymar is a What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com. This video has absolutely nothing to do with soccer cleats. However, I have some pretty strong opinions on the current Neymar situation. So if you enjoy the videos where I go on a bit of a rant, you're probably going to like this one. If you guys do end up enjoying this one and perhaps want to see more like it from time to time on the channel, don't forget to support this one with a like. Now, let me start off by saying that I have actually defended Neymar quite a bit on this channel over the years, both in regards to his boot situations that he's had between himself and Nike, and I guess more relevant to this particular video, his recent transfer that happened just 5 months ago when he left Barcelona for PSG. Now, if you guys watched my original video on that particular topic, I came to two major conclusions, and that was one, I thought PSG paid way too much money for him, and two, I didn't necessarily blame Neymar for taking all the money that was on the table to be taken. Keep this in mind, and this has kind of been my general opinion of professional athletes from any sport at all. They have a short period of time to make as much money as possible during their playing career. 10 to 15 years, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes it can be shorter. Neymar is very likely going to have a longer career than most. However, I don't have a problem with these players during that span of time making as much money as they possibly can. Yes, was he leaving Barcelona for a lesser club in PSG? 100%, there's no question about that. Would he be playing in a weaker league? 100%, no question about that. However, he'd be making a ton of money, and he'd be going to a club that clearly was willing to spend the money to put good quality players around them. So while the league wouldn't necessarily be the strongest, that didn't necessarily mean that he wouldn't have an opportunity to win the Champions League or play for one of the best clubs in Europe. However, circumstances have changed, and Neymar is slowly revealing himself as one of the most selfish footballers in the world right now. Now, there are two main things that Neymar has recently said that have really rubbed me the wrong way. One in regards to referees, and two in regards to his demands for a pay increase. In regards to the referees, while injured, keep this in mind, Neymar has publicly commented saying that the referees in Ligue 1 are not doing a good job of protecting him. He's being fouled far too frequently and far too hard. He's saying his entire body is bruised up and he can't deal with it anymore. Now look, I think we can all agree, regardless of what level that you've played at, that referees will make mistakes. Human error is a real thing. It's impossible for a referee to call a perfect match. However, at the same time, I think we as players really do abuse referees in regards to the calls that they make. I know for sure, and I'm sure most of you would agree, I've personally committed fouls that I knew was a foul and complained about it not being a foul when the referee called the foul. It's just part of the game. However, for Neymar or really any professional athlete to go and complain about the referees, not based on a specific situation, but just in general about not being protected or not getting enough calls, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't think too many people would argue with me in regards to Neymar's skill. He is arguably one of the most skilled players in the world. And what does he like to do as one of the most skilled players in the world? He likes to take players one-on-one. And there is a time and place to take a guy one-on-one. If you're out on the wing, trying to create some space for you to cut in or to create a cross, or even if you're closer towards the top of the box, maybe you want to even get in the box, try and get fouled for a penalty or create a chance. Again, there's a time and place to take a guy one-on-one. However, Neymar, especially since he's made the move to PSG, he tries to do the whole one-man show thing where in general possession at the midfield, when really nothing is happening at all, he takes on a guy one-on-one for no reason whatsoever. And he does that for the sake of showboating, for the sake of trying to humiliate the other player. He'll try to put it through his legs. He'll try to flip it over somebody's head with a flick that's completely unnecessary. And when it goes off, obviously the whole crowd loves it. Everybody loves it. You see all the Instagram highlights and YouTube highlights. It's part of the reason why Neymar is one of the most famous players in the world, not to discredit everything else that he does. However, think about that from the defender's situation. When you're being humiliated by a guy, what is the only thing that you can really do to get back at him? You're gonna foul him, and you're gonna foul him hard. And when the referee is watching this type of situation happen, they're not necessarily going to have sympathy for you when, again, you're simply doing these moves and making these situations for no reason at all, simply for the sake of showboating. Referees don't really like that. Therefore, they're not going to defend you when you engage in that type of situation over and over again. That's the reason why Neymar is taking all these hard fouls. You're not going to get fouled really hard as you're breaking into the box and then get tripped for a penalty. That's something that you actually want to happen. But when you're trying to humiliate guys in the midfield for no reason at all, just in general possession, guys are going to foul you very hard, and the referee is going to let it happen. So in my opinion, and I think most would agree, the referees are not to blame here. Neymar is, for his showboating style of play. If you don't play that way in the midfield, you're not going to take those hard fouls. And yes, Neymar is injured right now, but please consider this. His injury was self-inflicted. It didn't come from a hard foul where the referee didn't properly protect him. He was basically running, misstepped, tripped on his own foot, and hurt his ankle. It's just that simple. Now this is where things get really ridiculous because Neymar is now demanding a salary increase in order for him to stay at PSG, a club that he has signed with for 5 years and has only been a part of for 5 months, even though he recently said that 5 months at PSG has felt like 5 years. Poor Neymar. Let's keep in mind that at the moment, without any kind of salary increase, Neymar is the second highest paid footballer in the world, only behind Leo Messi, and rightfully so. So I think the best way to highlight the ridiculousness and selfishness that Neymar is currently showing is to recap the entire situation from the start up until this particular point. Neymar is at Barcelona. He's playing for one of the best, one of the most popular clubs in the world, and he's playing alongside a guy named Leo Messi. You might have heard of him. He's arguably the best player in the world, and depending on what your opinion is, he's arguably the best player of all time. The guy is pretty incredible. The two players like each other. There's good chemistry amongst the team. The team as a whole has a lot of quality talent and have obviously been successful for that reason. You could argue that Neymar's days at Barcelona have been the best days of his career. Then a team like PSG comes around and they are basically willing to spend whatever amount of money it takes to get Neymar out of Barcelona, which is basically the set amount of money within Neymar's contract there, his buyout clause, which at that time for that particular season was approximately 270 million US dollars. A ton of money, it would be a world record, but PSG was willing to pay it. Upon these rumors, what does Barcelona do? Everybody at the club, including Messi himself, is basically begging Neymar to stay. They do not want him to leave. They obviously value his talent, they value what he brings to the team, and they don't want him going anywhere. However, Neymar decides that he is going to take all the money that PSG is offering, which is a huge signing bonus for him, a huge signing bonus for his father, his manager, and who knows however much money was offered under the table that we don't even know about. All we know for sure is that Neymar made a ton of money transferring from Barcelona to PSG. Now, when this transfer first happened, a lot of people argued that Neymar's reasoning was to get out of Messi's shadow. He wanted to be the number one on his own team. He wanted to contend for the Ballon d'Or. And as long as Messi was at Barcelona with Neymar, Neymar would always be considered as the number two guy rather than the number one guy. And you could say that there is some truth to that. However, I never really agreed with that theory, mainly because Neymar and Messi never really butted heads. They seemed to be really good friends, and that was kind of public information that the two really liked each other, the chemistry was there. It never seemed like there was any kind of tension between the two on the field. So again, I don't necessarily agree with that whole opinion, and based on what we're seeing now from Neymar in terms of his demands, I think that is being proven 100% true. He simply went for the money. That is why this transfer happened. So he signs with PSG for 5 years. Now consider this, if you're going to be transferred to a club on a world record transfer fee and you're signing for 5 years, you have to consider, yes, there's a possibility that somebody could buy me out of there should something go wrong. However, probably not for the first 2 or 3 years. The club's gonna want some kind of return on such a huge investment. And obviously Neymar, besides success in terms of just wins, he brings a lot to a club in regards to ticket sales and jersey sales and just general notoriety. People are going to watch if Neymar is on the field. It brings a lot of attention to the club. So they're going to want to keep him there as long as possible. However, Neymar's comments recently saying that 5 months at PSG has felt like 5 years, I think says a lot about what his demeanor is right now in regards to his current club situation. One of the major things that people criticize Neymar for in going to PSG from Barcelona is that the quality of the league PSG is in is not at the same level as other European leagues, including the one that Neymar was in prior to the transfer. but we all knew that was going to be the case. I think if we're arguing for Neymar making this transfer and having his own team, if a club like that is willing to spend that much money in the transfer market for you, I think that shows that they're pretty committed to building a team around you, which means that they are probably going to spend the money to get you help should you need it. And I don't think, while PSG is not in the greatest league, that's something they can't really help, they definitely have quality players. The problem is you can have all the quality in the world, but if your competition isn't even close to the same level, which I think has been kind of the downfall of PSG really establishing themselves as one of the best clubs in Europe, once it came time to actually playing someone legitimately good, like Real Madrid in the Champions League, guess what happened? They got beat up pretty good. So in Neymar's first real test at his new club, they meet up with Real Madrid in the round of 16 of the Champions League. Leg 1, what ends up happening? They lose the match, and Neymar doesn't really have the greatest game in the world. Yes, he had some flashy moments, again, dribbling guys in the midfield unnecessarily, and a lot of people watch that and think, oh, he looked like he played really, really well, but did he actually do anything in terms of being productive for the whole team? No, he kind of just looked like a player that was on a mission to dribble around and look really flashy, but again, didn't really accomplish too much in the match. In my opinion, and most of the commentators that I saw after the game agreed with me as well, thought that Neymar really didn't do much of anything. He didn't have a great performance at all. And then before the second leg of the Champions League against Real Madrid, unfortunately Neymar ended up injuring himself, and that's where we're at right now. They lose the second leg against Real Madrid, get knocked out of the Champions League, and essentially PSG doesn't have too much else to play for the rest of the year, aside from winning the league, which who really cares? So with Neymar's first season at PSG pretty much being over at this point, and more or less being unsuccessful in that they did get knocked out at the round of 16 of the Champions League, yes, they're going to win the league, but again, pretty much everybody expected that from the start. It's not too big of an accomplishment given the roster that that team has. What does he decide to do while injured? Does he promise the fans that they'll do better next year? Does he start recruiting other players and try to convince them to come to the club and help him out so they can be better next year? No, he decides to demand more money as an ultimatum, or else he's going to leave, even though it's only been 5 months and he's signed to the club for 5 years. So let's consider what Neymar has done so far since his transfer to PSG. They're most likely going to win the league, but they've won the league without Neymar very recently, so I wouldn't necessarily credit him for that. And I'm not sure that Neymar was necessarily required for them to win the league. They could have done it without him. I'm pretty confident in saying that. And they got knocked out of the Champions League in the round of 16. Yes, Neymar did not get to play in the second leg. However, it's definitely viewed as a failure to get knocked out so early, given the amount of money that the club has spent on players over the last couple of years and what was basically expected of them. Yes, Neymar has probably sold a ton of shirts for PSG, and he's probably brought a lot of bandwagoner fans, hardcore Neymar fans who are now PSG fans, simply because he is now playing at the club. But what has Neymar shown in this current situation and his recent comments and demands? That he doesn't care about the club, he doesn't care about the fans, he doesn't care about the teammates. He just realizes that he has put this club in a situation where he has all the leverage. The initial investment that PSG had to make to get him over to their club was so big, and given that he signed for 5 years, he can essentially demand whatever he wants, because I think it's very, very unlikely that within the next 2, 3, or 4 years that any other club, I know there's talks of Real Madrid, there's rumors that he could go back to Barcelona, although I highly doubt that, but even Real Madrid, are they going to be willing to pay the $260, $270 million transfer fee that PSG paid for him when moving from Barcelona to their club? I think that's unlikely. If anything, over the last 5 months, Neymar's stock has dropped pretty significantly. So if he were to go to another club, any transfer fee that that club would be willing to pay would be significantly less than what PSG paid. So from a business standpoint, because ultimately these professional sports teams exist to make money, they're going to lose a ton of money if they end up selling Neymar, because again, they're unlikely to get the exact money that they paid, which is ultimately what they would want in order to just break even and cut ties with the guy. So again, what's Neymar doing here? It's kind of a scummy situation in that he's just trying to leverage his way into as much money as possible, or maybe even force PSG to sell him for less money. and just go somewhere else, because clearly he's not willing to be the number one guy. He's not willing to build something at the club. Yes, there's going to be complications with PSG and trying to buy more players and more help because of the new rules that are in place by FIFA to restrict these clubs from just buying all kinds of different players and spending tons and tons of money. However, all this shows me is that Neymar made this move from Barcelona to PSG, not to get out of Messi's shadow, not to prove himself, not to be a Ballon d'Or winner, but simply because he wanted the money and now he just wants more. Now let me just say that I'm fairly neutral when it comes to watching. I'm not a diehard fan of any one team. I'm not a diehard fan of any one player. I just like watching the game and seeing talent in general. And it's kind of a golden era for this particular sport with all the talent that's out there right now. We're regularly seeing records being broken by two guys, Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, who will go down as arguably the two best players of all time. Whoever you have 1 and 2, that's a completely different argument for a completely different video. But you could make the argument, many will, that Neymar is the number 3 guy. Does everybody think that at this very moment? I'm not really sure. And will that be the case moving forward? I'm not really sure. However, as a neutral, as somebody that really doesn't get emotionally invested in watching professional sports of any kind, it really irks me when you see a guy as talented as Neymar just abuse the system for the sake of money. The guy is very selfish, the guy is money hungry, and a lot of people have had that opinion of him pretty much from the start of his professional career. I've never really agreed with it all that much, but what he's doing right now with this whole PSG situation is just simply disgusting. I hate what's happening with him. Anyways, guys, that ends my rant on Neymar. I know there's gonna be a lot of diehard Neymar fans that might click on this video simply based on the title and call me stupid or whatever, but I think if you actually listen to what I said in the video, laying out all the facts, it's kind of an awful situation in regards to what Neymar is trying to do here. He really is just manipulating the club based on the leverage that he has. He doesn't seem to care about the club. He doesn't seem to care about the fans. He doesn't seem to care about his teammates. He's not asking for help. He's not asking for maybe a new manager to help change things up. He's simply being selfish and trying to benefit himself, whether that means more money or getting him out of this situation entirely. That's all he seems to care about, which again, I think is kind of awful. But let me know your opinions down below in the comments. Do you agree with what I have to say? Do you have any other points to add in regards to Neymar and his current PSG situation? I'd be really, really curious to hear your thoughts. Anyways, guys, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to support it with a like. I know it's not the usual thing that I do on this channel, but I felt like this video needed to be made because I really had some strong opinions on this. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching.